So, most of the time when I do a dealer's choice donation deck list, I am trying to play something fun for the channel. But today, instead, I'm testing a thesis. I think that many Moon Stompy players are playing too many 4 drops in their deck, and I want to kind of analyze that a little bit today. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And today, thanks to Sean, who gave me a Dealer's Choice donation deck list, I'm going to be testing out some Moon Stompy. So this was the deck that won, I believe it's called a Super Qualifier on Magic Online, so they had to go through a whole bunch of players and many rounds to do this, so this is in theory a good deck list. But what makes me nervous is that this version of the deck is rocking a whopping 12 4 drops, as well as 8 of these lands that do 3 damage to yourself. And I kind of feel like this is too many of both of those categories with like 6 lands that might do 3 damage to you, paired with 4 Ancient Tombs. That is a lot of self-damage in a world where a Psychic Frog could realistically hit you for 4 or 5 per turn cycle, or where a Murktide Regent or an Atraxa or a Troll of Khazad Doom can just really go to town on your life total quickly. And I'm not sure that this build is actually better than a build that lowers the curve a little bit. So I just 5-0'd with a nonsense version of this deck list featuring all sorts of new cards for Duskmourn, and I want to compare the performance of that version of the deck list to this. And I don't know how I'm going to feel about this exact build, especially considering that I already think the life loss is a problem before we even get started talking about the One Ring beyond that. I think the sideboard is perfectly fine. I think I conceptually like having more than 4 Pyroblasts, but this is the sort of stuff that I am looking to see from the sideboard. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and jump directly into the league here, and I just truly want to know how good this build actually is. Folks, if you need some Magic cards, especially for MagicCon Vegas, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Tales of Adventure is an awesome store. Look for this purple color in their banners if you are on site. Promo code ThrabenU will save you 5% on your online orders, and you can place them in advance and pick them up on site, and it's super convenient. Let's battle. Okay, so if this is a 3-drop here, and I curve Mountain Vexing Bauble into Ancient Tomb Caves of Chaos Adventure, I think this hand is pretty reasonable. I don't know that turn 3 Caves of Chaos Adventure as my first real impactful play. I don't really know if that's fast enough. Guess I am rocking fewer 3-drops than normal. This just feels so bad on the draw, though. I think I'm going to pitch it still. This is a much stronger hand. We'll keep this and get rid of 1 Spirit Guide. Now we have turn 1 play into turn 2 play, and we can do both of those around a theoretical daze. Sure. Being on the draw here might end up biting us in the butt. Yeah. Just win the die roll, idiot. Ooh, shit, it is combo. And my opponent has their own Vexing Bauble for protection. Metalcraft's now on. Opponent's passing the turn. Is my Vexing Bauble better than just playing Fable? I need to clock my opponent to win. My Fable is going to get outclassed by Urza Saga. My Urza Saga can loot towards Blood Moon. I think I need to loot. This is not really how I want to play this game. It makes it a little awkward to cast this Pyrogoyf, because the artifact mana that I draw isn't going to be live due to Vexing Bauble. Yeah, being on the draw here was rough. And I believe that I am not drawing towards as many Blood Moons. Yeah, I don't have Magus here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My Pyrogoyf is probably not killing the Urza Saga tokens, unfortunately. I'm going to try to make it happen, though. We're going to put Vexing Bauble and Caves of Chaos Adventure in the graveyard. Then we'll have Land, Enchantment, Creature, Artifact. I'm going to go ahead and attack. And the hope is that my opponent blocks. Sure. Oh, this is even better for me. Holy shit. Yeah, now I really hope that my opponent blocks. So there's the construct token. Yes. Okay, we went from being very dead to just, like, fully fucking fine. So now I get to Pyrogoyf and kill this construct token, and my opponent can now not make an Urza Saga token that lives through my stuff. There's still the combo side of their deck that we have to worry about here. Um, so hopefully that doesn't kill us. But I will kill my opponent incredibly quickly from here with Pyrogoyf. Sure. My Pyrogoyf just got shrunk, which is awkward. Veil of Summer, yep. And now my opponent can play their artifacts through Vexing Bauble, which is a reason why I don't super need to play out my own Vexing Bauble. Sure. If they're taking redraws off Vexing Bauble, that is probably good for me. No imprint. Storm 7. Galvanic Relay. Everything other than the first card revealed here. Alright, there's Beseech and Tendrils out there. Alright. So how do I make this as awkward as possible for my opponent? Give myself protection from everything with the One Ring. Leave their Tendrils in exile. Yeah. Seems good. The Vexing Bauble means that I can't Chrome Mox. So let's go. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. The One Ring. Bash in for 3. There's already an artifact in graveyard, so I don't need to just play Chrome Mox. And we'll see what my opponent can do about that. Sure. I can Blood Moon that. So this is fine. Artifact mana doesn't matter. Brainstorm's good, but fine. On junking their LED in response, presumably to get triple black for Beseech the Mirror. We'll sacrifice the Chrome Mox that doesn't do anything. Song of Creation, sure. Now my opponent's going to play a bunch of spells and draw a bunch of cards. I'm going to give you relevant updates rather than narrate every single play that they do, because it's going to be boring. The first relevant play going on the stack here is a Burning Wish, which maybe could get something like Empty the Warrens for a bunch of goblins. I think I just beat Empty the Warrens with Sundering Eruption, though. I just make it so their creatures can't block, copy Pyrogoyf, deal 8 damage directly to their face, and kill them the following turn. Something like that. Approach of the Second Sun. I see. Okay, so my opponent is going to attempt to cast that twice to win the game through the One Ring. Well, that's cute. So it is cast for the first time. It goes down 7 cards. And then my opponent casts it a second time. Well, I was not expecting to lose through the One Ring, but it sure did just happen. Yeah, that's a shame, because I can just lethal on my turn with, like, Broadside Copy Pyrogoyf. Okay. So Mindbreak Trap is fine. Notably, it exiles rather than counters. Vexing Bauble is a thing that is slightly awkward here. Fairy probably doesn't matter. It's probably not hitting the Echo due to how priority works. Fury, not really relevant here. That's going to be the first thing to go from my deck list. That will get me these first 4. I could play Fiery Confluence as a way to destroy a bunch of artifacts, or just go to the Dome. I have fewer 3-drops than normal by a lot. But my threat is going to come down later in the game, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I'm not sure how to evaluate Pyrogoyf here, as sometimes it is going to be insane, dealing direct damage that my opponent was not expecting. Sometimes I have it in multiples, sometimes I copy it and it just kills my opponent. I think the initiative creature clocks faster in a vacuum and doesn't get shrunk by Echo, so I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to play a couple of Fiery Confluences. It can blow up some Urza Saga tokens if things go wrong. No. Also, no. I don't think Fable of the Mirror Breaker, dealing probably roughly 10 points of damage to myself over the course of this game, I don't think that is going to win. The 5-card hand is easily the best one so far. So I land, Chrome Mox, imprint some card that I don't want to draw later. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then keep one of these 2 probably. I'm going to keep Pyroblast. Not 100% sure about that decision. but we'll see how it goes. It just helps out if my opponent does something like YOLO for a turn 1 Echo. Sure. So a major problem now is that since my deck is more 4-drop centric than 3-drop centric, I need to draw more things before I can get off the ground, which means that my opponent has more time to get out from under this Vexing Bubble, which is not great. So, like, I don't have 3 additional copies of something like Magus of the Moon that I can go and just draw into to shut off my opponent's mana while Vexing Bubble is temporarily slowing them down. Yikes. Okay, at least opponent isn't doing anything. That's not the worst. It is a clock. It's a lot better if I can play these Chrome Mox and like use them as shocks, but I can't right now, and I don't think that I can take Vexing Bobble out of play. Opponent notably does not have green mana yet for something like Veil of Summer. Sure. This was not bargained. Alright, so opponent has a land. That represents green mana. My Vexing Bobble may or may not be safe. Mindbreak Trap Vexing Bobble is a little weird. I think we're just going to deal with it. And if my opponent removes it, I draw a card in response. And if my opponent puts something scary on the stack, I can sacrifice Vexing Bobble and then Mindbreak Trap the scary thing. Damn it. Yeah. So they go down to 10 for that. But my broadside's not a very good clock while my Vexing Bobble is in play. Alright, so draw a card. Alright. Am I going to die? Doesn't look good. Yep. This is all the stuff that was probably making my opponent's hand keepable in the first place. Yeah, there's the Echo. So I have like Mindbreak Traps and Pyroblasts that I can draw into here. Whiff. Yep. Down to 8. Definitely nervous that I'm dead. That's probably a good sign. But my opponent doesn't need much more to kill me. So this is now enough that Beseech kills me. Yeah, there's the Beseech, and this just gets Tendrils and I die. Yeah. GG's. Initial analysis is that I like this build less than one with more 3-drops, but we'll see how we feel a little bit later. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is just the best place to host your online deck lists, and I don't think it's close. I think it's wonderfully organized, and you can have a great system of folders so that you can go through, separate your decks by whatever you want. I separate mine by format. I have just a few legacy decks, and Moxfield is able to keep track of all the decks that even someone like me makes, so please consider checking them out. Yes, Gemstone Caverns in the opening hand when you're on the play. I think I keep this hand. I'm not excited about it. And like, notice how because we have double 4-drop here, I can't actually make a turn 1 play that I normally would be capable of making. I don't really want to put my 1 red land into play, but I think it is correct to do so. Then I can turn to the 1 ring and hopefully just draw another land. Once upon a time, so probably not an Underground Sea deck where we're expecting days to just happen. Yeah, Sowing Mycospawn. Where are my 8 fucking Blood Moons? Why are we not playing 8 Blood Moons? Yeah, we can maybe just draw one off the 1 ring. Or, and hear me out, let's just hope we don't get punished for this and just do it off of City of Traders. Save the 2 life. Oh! Was not expecting that. Our opponent might be a slightly bigger build of Eldrazi, rather than an aggro version if they are playing crop rotation. And this is just supposed to help smooth out their mana. Ooh, yeah, straight up Echoing Deeps. Or it might just be fucking lands, actually. And it's just playing Sowing Mycospawn because Sowing Mycospawn is a good card. Regardless, I think we're doing this. And we'll draw a card, get protection from everything. I don't really want that right now. My Pyrogoyfs are going to be a little small here. Blood Moon beats Planar Nexus. That's an Elvish Spirit Guide. Sure. Fetching a basic mountain. We're good with that. And, oh, and Vexing Bobble. Sure. This is a 3/3. We're not killing it with Pyrogoyf quite yet. Let's draw my cards. Chrome Mox not playable. Actually, Chrome Mox very playable. Yeah, Chrome Mox very playable. So we're just going to cast that and let that get countered, go directly to Graveyard. That grows Pyrogoyf into a 3/4, which means that it kills Sowing Mycospawn. Thinking with portals. Boop. And we'll pass. I don't think we need to Simian Spirit Guide out of Vexing Bauble. I would like to now play like more Pyrogoyfs and more aggressive elements to just get this game over before my opponent just ends up naturally getting to higher mana amounts. Sure. And they can eventually just like Boseiju my Blood Moon if I don't find another. Yeah, this is the sort of stuff that I do want. Let's keep drawing. Make a land drop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 mana. My opponent doesn't seem to have another basic land. I think it's okay to play Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So yeah, I'll grab a basic mountain from my deck. Already played a land. I think I'm still just swinging though. Opponent goes to 16. I'm going to play my own Vexing Bauble in case things like Chrome Mox matter. And then I'll pass the turn. Opponent's going to cycle their own Bauble. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are just starting to get to higher mana totals here. Sure. More Cloud Post. Alright, do I want to block? Probably. I'm okay just trading resource for resource here when I have the One Ring. And we can forge the fuck out of this Pyrogoyf. Don't really need to scry at all if we are just going to... Ooh, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 6 and 7. Sometimes I can draw another Spirit Guide and have 8 mana. I think I'm going to go ahead and just attack here, see if my opponent chump blocks. They don't. Down to 10. Make a land drop. 4. Pyrogoyf. Send damage at face. Opponent is at 2. I'm going to see if I can draw another Blood Moon here. Oh, fuck. I am punished for not drawing pre-combat because of Broadside. That's not really what I thought this game was about. So instead, I think I'm just going to go, make sure nothing funny happens, keep this One Ring, and pass. Yeah, it was just tactically correct to draw pre-combat, though, thinking about the Broadside line. No sideboard, or very close to it? I don't have the Magus of the Moons that I would really like here. I could do some, like, Fiery Confluence, Dead Gone type stuff. I don't think I'm going to mess around with Fairy. I don't know that that is worthwhile. So I can kind of think about these 5 cards over like some Furies, Vexing Baubles, something like that. Don't have any Trinispheres or anything that I would want to board out. The nice thing about Vexing Bauble is that it's an artifact to go to the graveyard. My Pyrogoyfs are going to be a little smaller than average in this matchup, I think. And we're going to lean a little bit on Fable of the Mirrorbreaker to discard some relevant types. I think I still like boarding these out. Bring in about 4 removal spells, can help with some Urza's Saga, Merit Lage type stuff. So, now we are going to see Gemstone Cavern do a good thing, where... Man, I don't even get to do a turn 1 play with my fucking Gemstone Cavern because my deck is full of 4-drops, including the sideboard. Man! Just turn 2 the One Ring, probably. It's harder for me to open up on a good hand. My good openings are basically Fable and Blood Moon. Broadside is better as a mid-range card a little bit later on. Reluctant Keep. And I think I am getting rid of Fury. Opponent's got a Once Upon a Time. Eye of Ugin, Urza's Tower. Chrome Mox. Chrome Mox does some things here. That just kind of single-handedly moved this hand from bad to quite good. Or maybe bad is an overstatement, but from pretty mediocre to good. That draw doesn't really help. Not immediately. If my opponent plays a Planar Nexus, then this starts to become attractive. Unsure what to do. Never mind. I figured it out. It's cast Blood Moon. That's what we do. So 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5, 6, and 7 this turn. I don't think I'm going to imprint anything under Chrome Mox. It's really awkward to Sundering Eruption with a Blood Moon as a follow-up play, or vice versa. I think I am going to cast the Blood Moon and then just pass and hold Sundering Eruption. I can use Sundering Eruption to destroy a land later. There is a basic Plains, which is probably for sideboard Swords to Plowshares. There is a Sowing Myco spawn. Now my opponent has 2 basics versus my Blood Moon. I can Sundering Eruption away one of those basics and just kind of move on with my life as if nothing happened. I can Sundering Eruption both of those basics. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am going to want to Chrome Mox, probably getting rid of Dead Gone on this board. So let's start with Sundering Eruption on Forest. See if crop rotation happens. It does not. All right, there are no more basics. I'm going to take 3 damage to Sundering Eruption the Plains as well. And then we'll just ride the One Ring to victory. We swung that game back very hard, very quickly. I will say a game that looks like that is very impressive, but I think we lose this game some portion of the time if we don't draw that Chrome Mox on turn 1 to play the turn 1 One Ring. That was some very needed acceleration, and our opponent didn't get to like untap and stick another threat. Okay, I am, I think, going to keep this hand. I think that I am okay playing Vexing Bauble here so that my Fable of the Mirror Breaker does not eat a Force of Will. That would set me back a lot here. It makes it more awkward if I just eat like Swords to Plowshares or Fatal Push on the token afterwards. But otherwise, I can still just Blood Moon or Broadside next turn. Broadside plus Fable is pretty good as a way to chip down smaller creatures, or alternatively just deal good chip damage. Badlands. That means probably not so much with the counter spells. Lightning Bolt, though. Sure, maybe something like Grixis Control. Okay. Let's loot into some lands. I think I am looting away both of these. I think Blood Moon here is probably my best play. There's land. Ow. Yeah, this is a real concern with this deck, this version specifically, is that you can deal a ton of self-damage to yourself. And this is resolving. Now, if opponent is some weird, Rakdos Burn style deck, then playing the Blood Moon is not actually, damn it, positive. I was correct in my read about Grixis, though. The basic island is just unfortunate luck. Opponent might have somewhere on the order of 5 basics, though. Like, it wouldn't be crazy for island, swamp, mountain to be a part of their mana base. The Blood Moon putting me down a mana is also quite relevant here. I unfortunately think I'm just passing the turn. I don't really want to get rid of Vexing Bauble when putting the One Ring in play probably wins me the game. Sure. Is there a second island? There is a second. All right. 4-drop problem. I would accept trading for Snapcaster Mage, because if my opponent has Snapcaster Mage, they just Snapcaster Lightning Bolt anyway. Yeah, so I actually get better value by doing this here. But my dream of doing very cute things with Fury is now dead. 4th land drop. Murktide Regent is a problem. That is a 6/6, so that is outside of range of Fury. It's outside of range of Pyrogoyf as well. And now we start getting into the territory of, like, is it correct for me to crack Vexing Bauble? And I just, like, open myself up to being Force of Willed. So it's best if I luck sack into the land here. But I might need the 2 draws to get to the mana source. This is a very reluctant draw here. Apparently good, although if I had done it on my own turn, I could have replayed and gotten a card deeper. Hopefully that decision does not cost me this game. It might. Negative. Okay, so I'm going to go to 1. Next turn I can draw a land, Pyrogoyf Murktide Regent, and then Fury it to kill it. But I'm at 1, so a Lightning Bolt at any point this game kills me. An Orcish Bowmaster Ping kills me. That's fine, we can play the backside of this. Hold on, is there a creature in graveyard already? There is. Is it better to do this with the One Ring? Force of Negation counters this. Spell counters this? No. I think this is better. It sure doesn't feel good, though. So, mark 3 damage on Murktide Regent. Fury pitch for Fury. Is there a Force of Will? Wow, no. Alright, so now we just need my opponent to never draw anything that deals direct damage to me, and never flash in a Snapcaster Mage at end of turn to kill me. And never refill their graveyard for Murktide Regent. Just a couple of asks. I am into this. Let's see if it resolves. My stuff last turn did, so unless the counterspell was drawn this turn, that doesn't make any sense, yeah. So their draw for turn was Force of Will. Bash in for 4. Opponent goes to 16. Still very dead to bolts. Dodging thus far. I am going to cast the One Ring prior to attacking here. Alright, so I get protection from everything. Now, I do not get to draw a card right now, but I can draw a card later. On my next turn, I can draw a card with the 1 ring, and then play a new 1 ring. Alright, lose 0 life. Okay, if I do this and cast this second one, a counterspell does kill me. I think I'm okay with that. The chances that I win this game are already pretty low, so I am fine trying to get a little deeper into my deck here. So I Fog Combat for another turn, and in for 4. I could draw another Pyrogoyf next turn and kill my opponent. They're at 8, so double Pyrogoyf trigger does do it. And trip time. That is black mana. Orcish Bowmaster now kills me. Removal spell is also relatively likely now. Like, if opponent does not have more counter spells and does not have things like Ponder to play out, then, you know, Bowmaster, Fatal Push, all that sort of stuff makes sense, yeah. So I die to that. I don't think anything gets me out of that, because, like, I would just die to my own trigger there. Yeah. Alright. Unfortunate. Pyroblasts are probably fine here. We know our opponent has Murktide Regent. I don't know how many Planeswalkers they are going to be playing. I'm going to assume that Psychic Frog is in the deck until I have a reason to assume that it is not. Let's get these in. I think I'm just going to take the Blood Moons out and try to fight fair. I also don't think it's crazy to play a couple of Dead Gons, but I don't think I am going to do so. This is fine. I am going to keep this, but I think so that Force of Will doesn't just win my opponent the game. I take a turn off, and I just Vexing Bauble on 1. I could, like, Spirit Guide, Bauble, Ancient Tomb, Spirit Guide, Broadside, attack for 2 immediately, but against my opponent's deck that probably has a decent amount of removal, I don't know that that's a good idea. Losing the Caves of Chaos Adventurer sucks here, so I play around Force of Will and get got by Thoughtseize instead. Such is life. Yup. Pyrogoyf. That's fine, I'm going to give my opponent a chance to play a Psychic Frog first, though. Broadside with nothing to throw kinda sucks. That's a problem with losing the Goblin Rabblemasters and the Legion War Bosses. You just don't have tokens that you can repeatedly throw at your opponents for small amounts of damage. Next turn, if I don't draw anything, I will just play a Simian Spirit Guide and fucking Lava Axe my opponent with it, and that will look perfectly fine and good. It's just, like, very embarrassing if I cast Simian Spirit Guide and then my opponent pre-combat Lightning Bolts or Fatal Pushes my Broadside. Basic Island. Sure. This is quite good for me then. That means that I should, in theory, do 7 damage on my turn. I am fine playing this land drop. So let's just cast a Spirit Guide, hit my opponent for 2 with Broadside, bringing them to 14, then throw Simian Spirit Guide at their face. Simian Spirit Guide, either 1 red mana or 5 damage to face. Good card confirmed. There is a land. There's no land in graveyard yet, notably. Well, I can put one in there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have red. I think I'm just playing a Spirit Guide here, just as a spell. Wow, I was really expecting to lose Broadside in response to that. Nope. Okay. Orcish Bowmasters. Sure. Pinging my creature. Sure. If I just throw this at my opponent's face, Pyrogoyf is lethal next turn. I think I'm just going to let my opponent double block my creature. Menace. Target your face. Throw Spirit Guide. You're at 3. Board is clear. Counter spells are off. I am good with this. Brainstorm is fine. Opponent needs to do something like answer Vexing Bauble while wastelanding me and then counterspell, or Thoughtseize me, because this Pyrogoyf resolving is just death. I expect this Ponder to shuffle away the cards from that Brainstorm. I am correct. And we're chilling. I am going to go ahead and put another City of Traders into graveyard here and cast my lethal Pyrogoyf, just in case my opponent has some delve spell that can take a bunch of things out of their graveyard. I want to have creature, artifact, land in my own graveyard. Consign to Memory can keep my opponent alive here, and it does. So we'll pass turn. We have a lethal Pyrogoyf in play. I potentially have Fury for a blocker, although I will need another mana to do that. Alright, there is finally red mana. And an Edict, that's fine. Do I redraw with Vexing Bubble? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I draw red land, I have 6, I can cast that. Otherwise I can cycle on my own turn. Go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not play around something like a Daze. I think I'm okay cycling this now. Bowmasters is a thing. Yeah, that's fine. But it just, like, in theory, lets me mop up both with Fury, rather than my opponent playing it at end of turn and it being a downside. Yep. Red land, please. Never didn't have it. Although, here is that self-damage that we were talking about. I take 5 damage from my own cards this turn, which makes the One Ring significantly worse. Cast Fury. My opponent will probably have brainstormed away counter spells. So we will clear the board, leaving a lethal threat in play. Snapcaster into Edict. Seems reasonable. Now my One Ring isn't really great. My One Ring might kill me if I play it. It is probably correct to do so. But the One Ring from 4 life is pretty spooky against a Lightning Bolt deck. Alright. Yes, that is exactly why I drew. So that I could hit one of my 8 different tapped lands and play them out this turn, rather than lose life to them next turn. Alright, go to 3. Lightning Bolt. I'm dead to my One Ring trigger. Draw 2 cards, see if I can do something in response. Negative. So I would have just drawn Chrome Mox for turn, not been able to play Fury. Ooh. Yeah. High mana cost on average of my cards was definitely a downside here. Oh well. I'm going to keep my hand here. I'm going to complain about it a little bit, though. Right, so I'm going to Ancient Tomb to Vexing Bauble so I can One Ring around a counterspell next turn, but I am going to be starting the game effectively at 16 life, and I don't have any red mana to follow it up immediately, so this is quite awkward. And to keep a One Ring hand like this, I am going to end up sacrificing City of Traders when I play some of these red cards later. And the Fury is going to line up a little awkwardly with Vexing Bauble as well. That said, I'm still keeping it. So, like, I just accept that awkwardness. Opponent did mulligan once. Opponent says, love the channel, please keep up the content. You're in a video. Good luck. The disaster scenario here is probably just getting wastelanded. Okay. That feels beatable. I'm in a city. Let's do this thing. I'll draw a card. I'm probably not doing anything with that card right now. I have not hit any red mana yet. Between draw step for turn and 2 more draws, mathematically speaking, I'm pretty likely to find a red source. Fable is good for my opponent. I would like to just Pyrogoyf that sort of stuff out of existence if possible. 15. Nope. Draw. Spirit Guide. Okay. We're fine. We gotta get a little creative here. So we're gonna cycle Vexing Bauble to draw a card. Ooh. Broadside is cheeky. Now, I play a land drop to put a land into graveyard. Pyrogoyf now has 2 power. So 3 colorless mana plus 1 red. Pyrogoyf kills Goblin Shaman. And I don't believe that I take 2 to Vexing Bauble here. So my hope is to play a new Pyrogoyf and or Fury next turn. And just really pull ahead. Because as we have seen, Pyrogoyf triggering Pyrogoyf is incredible. Ooh. Well, that's not what I thought was going to be happening. But my opponent is a red-white, like, life-gainy mid-range deck. In which case, this Fury and these Pyrogoyfs are very, very, very strong. Especially the Fury. No! Although, honestly, I don't mind the life. Broadside is fine. I am going to fucking die if I don't draw a red land, though. Like, it is legit scary. Deck. Come the fuck on, please. Oh my god. Alright, alright. Can I even, like, play a Caves of Chaos Adventurer? I'm not sure that I can. I don't think that I can. So instead, I think I am going to... Ow! Go to 9. Ow! Go to 7. Go to combat. Send in for 2. Put my opponent to 14. Fury pitching probably Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Post combat specifically. So 4 damage at that broadside. And then target your face. Throw Fury at your face for 7. And this puts me on track to kill my opponent next turn. We could do this differently and throw the 1 ring instead. I think that's also valid. Opponent down to 5. So throwing the 1 ring at them is lethal. They get a cat. Goblin Bombardment. Okay. Uh-huh. How much is the damage on the backside? Let's see. Cat. Oh, that's 2 damage. Fuck. Yeah. Now my opponent goes sack, sack, and I die to the 1 ring. That was not on my radar. Sure. Okay. I don't think I can deal 5 damage at instant speed. Yeah. I cannot. I am dead. So, if I throw the 1 ring at broadside last turn, I don't evoke Fury. My opponent's at a much higher life total, and I have to try to beat the fair Planeswalker. Maybe I win this one if I do throw the 1 ring. Okay, I have 6 removal spells that I can bring in. Vexing Baubles can go out, and then I'll probably do something like Trim a Blood Moon. Sometimes a Blood Moon can knock my opponent off of white. It's not really a card that I am excited about playing. And honestly, I could just keep Vexing Bauble to cycle it to put cards into my graveyard for Pyrogoyf. Chrome Mox Imprint. Chrome Mox Imprint. Play the 1 ring, probably off of Ancient Tomb. I might be able to play it off City of Traders, actually. Yeah, okay. Don't Stony Silence me. I'm just going to go ahead and play out all my mana. That costs me both of my red cards and my red land. But with 2 Moxen in play, that probably doesn't matter. Draw a card. Sure. Broadside is a pretty reasonable follow-up. I don't really want to be throwing Moxen, but I will if my opponent slaps down something like an Ocelot Pride or a Guide of Souls. Alright, let's find something else to do other than the broadside, please. Maybe not that one. Maybe not that one. So let's sacrifice City of Traders to put a land into graveyard for Pyrogoyf. Play out a broadside, and we are going to feed broadside to Swords to Plowshares, I suspect. Alright, opponent takes 2. I am not willing to throw any of my artifacts right now. They feel too good. Mountain. It's just deck thinning. They can't get a Surveil land since that's Prismatic Vista specifically. 3 mana for my opponent into a Fable. I would really like to just Pyrogoyf this, which I can do. It might cost me a Chrome Mox, though. Let's keep drawing cards. Cards are good. It can cost me this Chrome Mox. I'm going to play Chrome Mox with no intention to imprint. Go to combat. Send in for 2. I'm just going to nuke this now because I'm always doing it. Wait, that's not what I wanted to do at all. I wanted to send that 2 at face. I guess I can send the Pyrogoyf at face. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. This is only 2 damage at face. This isn't the optimal use of the Pyrogoyf, but the Pyrogoyf can just be thrown if nothing else happens, and if I draw another Pyrogoyf, it is a lot of direct damage. And there's also this really weird trap for my opponent here, where if they loot through some creatures, it actually grows my Pyrogoyf. So this Fable of the Mirrorbreaker trigger is probably very, very tricky to resolve, especially considering that Ancient Tomb is rough for my opponent. But now Pyrogoyf is outside of Lightning Bolt range, which is cool. Opponent does not have white mana currently. It's a little tricky to play a mana base that has 2 colors plus Ancient Tomb. That's something I've shown on this channel just again and again and again. Well, they found their colors at 10, probably about to be at 8. A broadside of their own, but nothing fun to fling yet. There's something fun to fling. Are you interested in trading Ocelot Pride for broadside? Let's find out. My broadside is probably scarier than your broadside, in my opinion. Yep. This isn't the best position for my opponent because I am about to draw 5 cards and find something to answer their broadside, and they end up back on the empty board. So let's draw. Oh, my opponent just dies. Cool. Send it. 3 direct damage. Fiery Confluence. 6 damage to each opponent. Get them. Okay. My opponent's start felt clunky. No 1-drop there. Really broke serve for me. My opponent did not get white mana until quite late. These cycle for Pyrogoyf, which as we saw that match, like that absolutely can matter. I think I am keeping this hand. I am probably playing turn 1 Fable of the Mirror Breaker. That can change a little bit if my opponent plays like a turn 1 Ocelot Pride or something. I can think about turn 1 Broadside. All right. Mountain. From Mox. Imprint. Blood Moon. I think I like killing this creature. Let's just Broadside, awkwardly throw the Chrome Mox, and assume that we'll draw out of this. I think it's just very easy for me to get run over here. I think I messed up. I'm not supposed to do this. I'm supposed to just Fable and then play this next turn. Yeah, I messed that up. My opponent answers my Broadside. They're not doing anything else productive with their turn, though. Oh, I'm wrong. Oh, no, I'm not wrong. Okay. That's fine. That's an incredible draw. Blood Moon's probably a negative here. I don't want to play that. We're going to loot that away. I'm going to go ahead and play Fable here. I don't know how many basic planes my opponent is playing, but the answer is almost certainly more than one. So I am currently planning on looting away both of my cards, that are in hand. Another Swords? Another Swords, yeah. Fiery Confluence. That's maybe good. Okay, hopefully this doesn't lose me the game. So sack my land. 4 mana. Please no third Swords to Plowshares. If there's no third Swords to Plowshares and I make it back around with this creature, I can forge it up, attack them, and then Fiery Confluence them. And that is probably just the game, counting Ancient Tomb damage over there. But if I do lose my creature this turn and my opponent takes the initiative, then Fiery Confluence is much, much, much worse at stabilizing this game. I think I'm okay given this pause, because Swords to Plowshares would be the fastest thing in the world that I would snap off here. Red mana, a new Fable, sure. No attack, okay. All right, so what if I forge? If I forge, I have a 7 power creature with 5 toughness. I think I'm good with forging. So let's forge. Oh shit, Pyrogoyf 2? Oh-ho! Alright, let's just attack with the 7 power creature and see what happens. Because I can hit things off this trigger that I might want to cast. Shatter Skull Smashing. Probably don't want to cast that. Okay, this is fine. I still trample through for 5. Opponent is at 6. I'll take this value. Pay some life, because the game's over. 6 damage to each opponent. Yeah, and I am going to do that with Fiery Confluence and not Pyrogoyf. I want to play Pyrogoyf when I can immediately copy it with Reflection of Kiki Jiki. Okay. Lots of big damage that fight. Fiery Confluence did some serious work. Okay. I have 2 lands. I can't cast any of my spells other than Bauble. I don't think I like this one. Turn 1 Blood Moon? Okay. I am effectively getting rid of 2 cards here to accomplish turn 1 Blood Moon. And if I'm just jamming the Blood Moon, I probably just get rid of Vexing Bauble and then junk a Sundering Eruption. Alright. My Blood Moon opener is not great. Okay. I am in fact not going... Fuck. No, I am not going to Blood Moon. I am going to Sundering Eruption and hope that my opponent does not have a basic land in their deck. This still sets them back 1 mana while allowing me to play a 4-drop next turn. Fuck yeah, no basic land, let's go. Now play an Urza Saga. Damn it. Alright, so I'm gonna play a Blood Moon. You've convinced me. Let's do it. So I've set my opponent back 2 mana this game, although this kind of stabilizes a mana source. I've shut off Urza's Saga. My opponent can have a really big Grim Monolith turn this turn. They didn't. I get the 1 ring, and then hopefully this can spiral into some threats in a meaningful way. Reducing the amount of colorless mana my opponent can make is a big deal here. Never mind. But now they get to do this whole Grim Monolith tap untap thing and end up with a ton of mana. We can see something like a Karn into an Ensnaring Bridge or something like that very quickly here. Glaring Fleshraker. Ah, fuck. That's so good. So now my opponent gets to ping me and make a colorless mana every time they cast one of these spells. This is devastating. I don't get pinged this exact turn because of the One Ring. So that's at least good. Alright. Not great. I think I die next turn a decent portion of the time. I am going to make this play so that I can make another land drop here. My cards are rather expensive on average. Playing more of them is good. But assuming the Mystic Forge draws are at all reasonable, I don't think I'm making it through this turn alive. I'm not making it through this turn alive. Alright. I'm going to walk away from my computer for a minute, and when I come back, I'm going to be dead. Because my opponent just can make so much mana. Mystic Forge, the top cards of the library away. Yep. Oh, hey, look at that. I died. I was busy, like, rearranging my dice. Non-deterministic combo. Not the most fun. Okay, Fiery Confluence is good. Mind Break Trap technically does some stuff, but is kind of unexciting. My approach here. Vexing Bobble, like, technically matters, but it doesn't matter that much. My opponent's 1-drops and such are going to power out their mana later, and they can just convert the 0-drops into spawn with a Glaring Fleshraker. I think I'm just going to get rid of these, despite the fact that they do have some impact on a game. Blood Moon similarly slows my opponent down, but it, like, shouldn't be an expected win condition. I am just going to trim one random body here. This is turn 2 Fable of the Mirror Breaker, or turn 2 Broadside Throw Fury at face for 7. So turn 2 Broadside, attack for 2, 18, Throw Fury for 7, 11, which is effectively 5, which is effectively 3. I am going to keep this and hope that this races. It doesn't always race, though. We're just going to land pass, hope for the best. Urza's Saga. Well, I don't have Blood Moons, so you lucked out. Spirit Guide probably doesn't change anything here. Okay. I think it's that land. I think this game is on a very, very short timer. I think we are in for this. And I think I do it pitching Fable. Don't want to deal 4 damage to anything. Target your face. Throw for 7. Hope for the best. Ooh. No play from our opponent. Pyrogoyf is 2 damage. I think more importantly, Pyrogoyf is just more damage at face from Broadside. I think I accept that. Ow. So yeah. 2 damage at face. Send it. Down to 7. Broadside. Target face. Throw at face for 6. So Broadside is lethal next turn, and Fiery Confluence is lethal next turn. And opponent has no reasonable permanence. So, I mean, we'll see if they can do something like key into land drop, Grim Monolith, just pop off in some crazy capacity. But they would also need to keep me from casting Fiery Confluence in addition to answering Broadside. That seems tough. More mana. More mana. Actually, no. Same amount of mana. That's just neutral. Ozilek's Command. Just making spawns. Topping 4 cards. Spatial Contortion as a removal spell. Unfortunately for you, face. So I think I am going to deal 1 damage to each creature and 4 damage to my opponent, just in case something wonky happens. Yeah. Dead. We do have to win a game where we're on the draw now, though. That is a bit tougher. Fury better than Caves of Chaos Adventure when I'm on the draw? I think so. Do I want Dead Gone on the draw? Sure, I'll play that on the draw for Glaring Fleshraker. I'm not really the most excited about decreasing my threat density. I have 2 mana here, and it's 2 mana that costs me another card. This is no good. Second hand is also not great. I think I'm keeping it. I am just not the most happy about it. Probably getting rid of Fury. I don't mind putting that in the deck to draw later. I am probably just casting a Sundering Eruption on turn 1. I would Blood Moon if I drew one. Fuck my Chrome Mox. Sure. I'm going to play this as a land. Not happy about it. Urza Saga gets to tick up. My opponent can start making constructs that I'm going to have to deal with. I have Fiery Confluence, so I can deal with them. Uh-huh. Is it worth it for me to play Fable of the Mirrorbreaker? If I play Fable of the Mirrorbreaker and my token dies, then sometimes I don't actually cast Fiery Confluence next turn, and Fiery Confluence removing Mystic Forge is kind of a big deal. But I think I don't cast it. Boy, I am sad about that. So my opening hand did not make a play on turn 1 or turn 2, and my opponent can maybe just combo off this turn. That was an opal rather than a... Yeah, well, I don't have removal for that, so do your thing. But now this is like Mystic Forge, Glaring Fleshraker, play cards off the top of the library. In a way that is very, very, very bad for me. Vexing Bauble redraws, changing the card that's on top for Mystic Forge. Gross. Now the keys are online. Alright. So I can 2 damage to all creatures and destroy Mystic Forge as of right now. But I'm going to give you an end of turn update. This is probably going to go on for a while. Alright, and a couple of minutes later, we get the... Oh, nope. Sorry, one more trigger. The lethal trigger. And we end up dying and have a very unimpressive 2-3 league here. Okay. What do we think about this deck? I think it's bad. Like, obviously it won a super qualifier, so, like, it won a very large, very difficult event, but I don't think that this is probably the optimal way to build this deck list. I think this build has a lot of things working against it. I think it has too many of these lands. Like, it is trying to go very high on these because they pitch to Chrome Mox and Fury, but the result is you deal a very large amount of damage to yourself in any given game, and any time that you have to, like, do one of these into an Ancient Tomb and effectively start the game at 15 life, it's pretty rough. And with only 4 Blood Moon effects, it's not like these are going to just come into play untapped as mountains without any life loss associated with them a decent chunk of the time. Vexing Bauble has some awkwardness with Fury and Chrome Mox, but I am still ultimately a big fan of Vexing Bauble in these shells. I don't like 12 4-drops in the deck. I think that too frequently that is going to lead to you having bad opening hands, especially if you consider Broadside not really a reason to keep an opening hand. That means that you are either looking to have 4 mana on turn 1, or you don't make a turn 1 play, or you turn 1 a Blood Moon, and then sometimes your soul land that you are using to accelerate into the Blood Moon isn't bridging you into these cards successfully. And especially when you consider that Pyrogoyf is not really a thing that you can play early either. This deck doesn't actually have that many good early plays, and I think accordingly it mulligans worse than the average version of this deck. So for just a second here, I want to compare this to what I recently 5-0'd with. And I am not saying that Razorkin, Needlehead, and Screaming Nemesis are exactly what you should be playing here. But just, like, look at the difference between these decks in terms of a curve. I just have the 4 Pyrogoyfs as my curve toppers, and I am much, much, much lower to the ground. So I have those 8 Blood Moon effects. I am not as phased by my own Blood Moon if it sets me back on some mana because I require less mana to actually go and play my cards. I can devote more of these slots in the sideboard to the blast effects, which I think are very, very good. There are certainly things to like about the build that I played today. You know, we saw Broadside throwing Fury, Broadside throwing Pyrogoyf can just very, very, very quickly end games. But I think that there is more awkwardness here than anything else. And I think this one is probably a bit too greedy. Fundamentally, a difference between Sundering Eruption and Magus of the Moon in this metagame is that if you Sundering Eruption a soul land from the Eldrazi deck, they can just go and get their basic forest or their basic wastes, and your Blood Moons that you are going to be playing are then worse. Whereas if you just jam a Magus of the Moon, you probably shut off most of their colored/colorless mana production for the rest of the game. And, like, this is something that is in the land slot, so that's not like 100% a fair comparison in terms of a 1-to-1. But despite the fact that this says destroy target land on it, it might not actually be the best versus Eldrazi, which is a major force within this metagame. I also don't really know that I like being the 12 4-drop deck in one of the best like blue-black meta games that we've seen in quite a long time. Like Daze is an incredibly a very popular card, and you are not always going to have your Vexing Baubles. When you have more 3-drops, like you can frequently set up situations where you play a critical card like a Blood Moon, they Daze it, and then you just Spirit Guide. But if you are using your Spirit Guide to cast your 4-drop, you might end up in worse shape. So if you are going to be, preparing for a major tournament, just something like, say, Eternal Weekend, I don't know, to pick a random one, you want to be playing a deck that looks like this, you might want to really think about your curve and put in the work and do your own testing. I have played one league with this deck. Maybe I can adjust my play patterns a little bit, mulligan a little differently, get some better results with this. But I am not overly impressed with this specific build, and I think I would be trying to lower my curve a little bit. All right, that was a really good league in terms of learning things and trying some things out, and I kind of verified a theory that I have, although, sample size of one league, so please keep that in mind here. Should you need any cards to adjust your Dragon Stompy, your Moon Stompy deck list, please consider checking out my sponsor. Use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. And folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!